As spring approaches, Air Station Kodiak launches crews to help families across Alaska.
Doc's good to go.
We're rolling like gangsters then.
The team rushes to a remote village where an infant's life hangs in the balance.
The child was just very sick and was having seizures, like nonstop seizures.
And the Coast Guard must travel out to sea to save a member of their own family.
Once you hear it's another Coast Guard member, it kind of like hits you, one of our family members is hurt, they need our help.
The vast Alaskan wilderness, a place where beauty is cloaked by danger. Here, every day, 350 highly trained men and women risk their lives to save others. America's deadliest waters are protected by Coast Guard Alaska.
Report ready for approach.
Ready for approach.
Roger. So what I'd like to do is just knock out 2 quick free falls a little bit forward to this position, and then we'll flop over the other side if that's right.
So flying on a Sunday with the duty crew, we call it, and that's a crew that's ready to be diverted for any kind of search and rescue case. And in this case, we've got a training flight for my air crew members and for another pilot.
And rescue checklist complete. Ready for one free fall deployment of the rescue swimmer. Swimmers in the water. Swimmers okay. They're up, back, and left 30.
All right. Good job. Nicely done.
And essentially, this was a quiet Sunday afternoon duty out on a nice day here in Kodiak, when all of a sudden we start to pick up on a little bit of chatter that something might be going on about 90 miles south of Kodiak.
About an hour into the trainer, we got the call to divert for a Medevac to recover a 22-year-old female with internal bleeding. So because we were diverted in flight, we did make the decision to return to Air Station Kodiak and take on more gas. And also, we needed to come back to Kodiak anyways to get a flight medic.
You got a lot of stuff, man.
I know, it's all that.
Yeah, that's what you gotta do.
My name is HS2 Jose Varela. I'm a corpsman here at the Road Working Clinic in Kodiak, Alaska. I'm actually at home getting the girls ready for a birthday party when the call came saying, hey, you're being launched for a Medevac. We just need you to get ready, like, right now.
Hey, corpsman, co-pilot, what are your initial, what are you thinking? I don't know, I'm gonna evaluate the patients first and then go from there. Just thinking about doing an IV on her, I don't know.
We had a lot of communications between the pilots, and me and the rescue swimmer, we were talking about how to prep the patient. So we knew what was gonna happen even before we got into the scene, what would be better for a female with internal bleeding.
So what are your initial thoughts, Ben? Send the swimmer down first. Initial thoughts is swimmer. If we could just minimize the amount of time on scene.
Well, about 20 miles north of the vessel, so we're about 15, 20 minutes out, we established our initial communications with the captain to brief the evolution, how we're going to pick up his crew member.
005 Independence.
And Independence from the Coast Guard. Essentially what we're planning on doing is lowering a rescue swimmer to your vessel. Do you have a preferred hoisting area?
Yes, Roger. We have a helipad on our stern. Over.
So sounds good, right? We can pull into a 10-foot hover right here. Just hold a hover. Sounds great. Quick hoist.
It's over 300-foot vessel, and on the back of the Independence there's a small flight deck, which kind of it makes you think this one's going to be easy, but you got to be careful not to get lulled into a sense of complacency. There still might be a lot of snag hazards, a lot of gear on deck, even people in the way.
Hey, Roger, Captain. Right now your course and speed is good, sir. Please take a moment to look around the flight deck. We bring Hurricane Force 2 winds to your vessel when we're in the hover.
When we got on scene, the rescue swimmer is starting to prepare his gear for the Medevac. I was in the left seat. My co-pilot, Adam Spencer, was in the right seat, ready to hoist.
We'll do the hoist from 20 feet. The only obstacles we have are the antennas, the mast, out to the right there, and then there's those exhaust stacks, so we'll keep an eye on that. Roger, I'm scanning the area as well for some hazards.
And in this case, with our rescue swimmer, Jason, we want to make sure he's got a warm and fuzzy about the part of the vessel that we're going to put him down on, which in this case is their small flight deck, but also what kind of gear he's going to bring with him.
It'd probably be best to use the litter for this. Yeah, I gotcha. You don't want her sitting, have position in the basket.
Because of the information that we got, abdominal pain and possibly internal bleeding, we decided to get the patient in a comfort zone. We use the SAR litter, so she'll be just laying flat That way we avoid the movement of the patient and possibly causing more pain.
Are you guys ready to go?
We're ready, sir. Bring in swimmer to the cabin door.
Rescue briefings, please. And Independence from the Coast Guard Helo. At this time, we're ready for the deployment of our rescue swimmer. I request permission to come aboard.
Roger, you have permission to come aboard.
Rescue checklist complete. Ready for one harness deployment of the rescue swimmer to the helipad, followed by delivery of the litter. Roger, check swimmer. Second swimmer. And you can be again, hoist.
Roger, have the helipad inside. Swimmer's going outside the cabin door. Swimmer's outside the cabin door and on his way down.
Roger, come in.
Roger, forward and right 20.
My name is Jason McGrath. I'm a rescue swimmer and EMT on the H-60s. We wanted to just do 2 quick hoists. So we had the litter rigged already. I got in the door, they put me down on the boat.
Swimmer's on deck, full position. Roger.
Well, the swimmers are trained to operate independently as soon as they disconnect from the hook, and so we are ready to do whatever they need us to as far as delivering rescue gear, flying away, coming back, and in this case, my flight mechanic, Ryan, he's ready to go with the litter. I'm ready to send that down to the flight deck for Jason to take care of our patient.
And he's disconnecting the litter. Airline's still on deck, retrieving the hoist hook.
I got down there and got the litter down and then went and assessed the patient.
On the hoisting, I'm just looking out of the door. I want to have an idea if the patient is big, if the patient is small, how they're looking down in the boat before I got them.
6005, this is rescue swimmer 1. Swimmer 05, go ahead. Roger, I've got her in the litter, ready to be hoisted. He's ready. Let us know when you're ready, Ryan.
Roger. 1 second.
Assessed the patient, got her packaged in the litter. You could tell she was in a lot of discomfort. I talked to the ship medic that was on there, and he had tried to give an IV, but was unable to, and that's what she needed to replace the blood loss.
Fair, take the load, taking the load. Litter's clear, the vessel clear back and left easy. Litter's halfway up, clear back and left easy. Trailline's on deck. And get the litter position.
When we bring the patient into the cabin and I start doing my assessment, and then we pick up the rescue swimmer and we went here to Kodiak.
Independence from the Coast Guard, 6005, Roger, Captain. We appreciate the help of your crew.
Roger, just to let you know, my wife, she watches you folks on TV all the time, and then she tells me how exciting it is, okay?
That's a good copy. We appreciate that, Cap. We enjoy getting to do the job, and great job to your crew as well, sir.
Well, you guys do a heck of a job.
Once I assess the patient, I'm trying to do an IV. We got the stick, fluids are going down the line, so it was pretty good.
You might actually make it home for your birthday party.
Yeah, maybe.
We landed the helicopter in Kodiak.
Oh, what's your drink?
And then transport the patient to an awaiting ambulance here, and mission complete.
One of our fellow Coast Guard members was injured on the Coast Guard cutter Sycamore.
Screwdriver in left eye.
You're always giving 100%. This time you have to go and give it all because he's one of your guys.
The case was a very small child in distress.
All right, everybody where they want to be for the landing.
Roger.
The mother's sitting there staring at her baby and is just having seizures, just racked by seizures.
Make sure they get on nice and safe.
Well, good morning. Today what we're going to do is we're going to talk to you about what we're looking for from a Coast Guard applicant. And then we also have another group of guests today who are going to talk to you a little bit about their career fields and how you can get into the Coast Guard if that's the career that you want. I'm Chief Petty Officer Amy Johnson. My rate is Intelligence Specialist, and I'm actually the recruiter in charge for Anchorage, Alaskan. Today we are spending time with students who are maybe interested in joining the Coast Guard, and ultimately we're always looking for the best of the best. Demon Harvey?
Thank you.
I'm Stephen Torpy, attached to the Coast Guard Cutter Monroe. Some of the things I'm involved in on the Monroe, I'm breaking in as a boat crew member. So I get to go out in the middle of the ocean on a 23-foot boat and we're zipping around all over the place. It's a really, really cool experience. I'm also a helo tie-down member. It's a big rush going out under a helicopter that just landed. You know, nothing really attaching it to the deck except you. So that's a lot of fun.
I think it's very easy to be proud of being in the Coast Guard because of all of our missions. We are genuinely helping people, whether it's, saving them, saving their property, saving the environment. At the end of the day, we absolutely serve the American public in everything we do.
All right, good morning. I'm Steve Fisher. I am one of the rescue swimmers here stationed in Kodiak. Been in the Coast Guard about 10 years, been an AST rescue swimmer about 8 years. When we're performing our rescue swimmer duties, we're part of the air crew. We run the radios in the aircraft, and then if the need arises, we'll get in the water, get on a boat, and help out.
Swimmer's going down.
Once we're back up in the aircraft with a survivor, we're also EMT qualified, so we're able to perform any medical services while en route back to Kodiak until we pass them off to an ambulance. It's tough, but if it's something that you really want to do, it's a great career. When I was graduating high school, I had a similar experience where the recruiters came in and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So it's pretty neat. It's 10 years later now, and I'm talking to the kids kind of in the same boat that I was. All right, anybody got any questions?
How many people have you saved?
Honestly, 5 people. 5 people total, and then, it's not all about just saving people. There's tons of occasions where there's somebody, they're in a scary situation, they're at the risk of losing their boat or their equipment, and we go down and we help them out. We're not here trying to sell anything to these kids. We're just here to enlighten them a little bit and, maybe get them interested and get them excited about what we do. It's worth it to give back.
It's off the Sycamore. It's a Medevac.
They didn't say Medevac for what, or?
Didn't say. He didn't travel that long yet.
Well, it's about 2 hours there, so.
Yeah. At 2:30, call came in for a Medevac off the Coast Guard Cutter Sycamore. We had a crew member with a head injury or something to that effect.
Hey, any information you can give me on this case? And MK3, what medically is wrong with him? Screwdriver and left eye? Yep, thanks. Did you hear all that?
Yeah, screwdriver to the eye.
MK3, screwdriver in the eye. They're good position, just north of Cape Hinchinbrook. So 1,600 foot overcast, 3 knots on the wind, and no preset. I'm gonna go change out.
I'm changing right now. I'm just signing.
All right.
I've never done a case with another Coast Guard member before, but you can't let that bother you, can't let that mess you up. It's a Medevac. We do everything the same, whether it's a Coast Guard member or not. So going into it, I'm going in with the same mentality I go into every other case, and we'll see what happens when I get there.
We just got the emergency survival equipment. We'll get our guard with whoever you feel appropriate.
I'll get a sector.
Okay.
Going that way.
After talking to the rescue swimmer, we both agreed that we should probably bring a corpsman along. So we did that. We put out the call to the Rockmore Clinic.
Tom, you got a seat preference?
Wouldn't mind the right seat.
It's all yours, man.
We added more fuel to the plane, did our crew brief and our risk assessment, and then went out to the aircraft, started up, and headed towards Cordova.
We were already out of the plane, the helicopter was turning it up, and as soon as we saw the corpsman coming in, we waved him into the helicopter. We got his gear inside and him inside, strapped everything down, and we taxied out and took off, headed up to the Prince William Sound so we could rendezvous with the Coast Guard Cutter Sycamore and get that guy off the boat.
When I hear eye injury, there's 2 things that goes through my mind. How big was the object, and is the object still in the eye? Once you hear it's another Coast Guard member, it kind of like hits you. Coast Guard is a family. One of our family members is hurt. They need our help. So you're always giving 100%, 110. This time, you have to go and give it all because he's one of your guys.
The plan was to send Chris Moore down to the boat, figure out the situation.
Ready for harness deployment to the rescue swimmer to the boat.
Called us on the radio, said, yeah, he's okay to go in the basket. This is where it was definitely a little different from any other hoist I've done, because when I got him in the cabin, he had bandages over both of his eyes and he couldn't see.
Hey, Lieutenant Morrow, this is Lieutenant Dave Cobra at Station Kodiak. How you doing? We've got the 6005. I should be on scene with the Sycamore here anytime now. We're looking at having those guys pick the member off the Sycamore, head to Cordova. We're thinking we can have the C-130 pick the injured crew member up from Cordova. Lieutenant Dave Coburn, ODO. I've been on duty for about an hour and a half now. When I came on duty, there was already a case running. One of our fellow Coast Guard members was injured on the Coast Guard cutter Sycamore off of Cape Hinchinbrook.
We were flying. I'm talking with the rescue swimmer what the plan was. What are we gonna do? What to expect.
The plan was to send Chris Moore down to the boat, figure out the situation, kind of assess the crew member, figure out how he needs to come up, maybe with his head leaning forward a little bit, depending on the severity of the injury, just so that he wasn't leaning back and putting any more pressure on the backside of anything. It was about a 2-hour flight out there. So we just talked about all these different things. We got up there, we got on scene and got everything set up, talked to the boat, told them what our plan was.
When I put the swimmer down on the boat, I'll have you and your bag jump over here real quick, so I'll have room to bring in the patient. So the patient is here sitting, you guys can just sit there. Okay. I'll be working and then I'll be like, hey, can you hold this for me, whatever. You know, that way you keep me just give me a hand. Okay. This should be the Sycamore right there. All right, cap door coming open. Okay, it's going to be swimmer deployment, harness deployment, swimmer, just fan tail, Sycamore. Roger, rescue checklist complete, ready for harness deployment to the rescue swimmer to the boat. Load check complete, lowering swimmer, swimmer's going down. Swimmer's below the cabin. Swimmer's going down. Copy it. Roger, right, 30.
Put Chris down on the back of the boat. Chris went in, assessed the situation, called us on the radio, said, yeah, he's okay to go in the basket. So I got the basket ready to go, put the basket down on the deck.
Basket below the cabin. Basket going down.
Chris and somebody else, they were guiding him out to where the basket was. They got him all ready to go, gave me the ready for pickup signal. I brought him up in the helicopter, and this is where it was definitely a little different from any other hoist I've done, because when I got him in the cabin, he had bandages over both of his eyes, and he couldn't see.
The patient actually has bandages over both of his eyes. I'm not sure if we're going to get him out of the basket pretty easily, so give me a few seconds here. No problem, take your time. No rush.
Brought him in the cabin, helped him get out. Jose was in the cabin at that time, and he helped me get him out of the seat. We got him in the chair, got him buckled in, got him all set to go, and then put the basket away, and then I sent the hook down for Chris and brought Chris back in.
We're halfway up. And rescue swimmer, close cabin. And bring swimmer up the cabin doors.
Once we get the rescue swimmer, cabin doors closed, then it's showtime. Then I'll work with the patient.
Numbers inside the cabin. Roger, Station Part 3, ready for flight.
The patient had 2 bandages on his eyes because if you have your injured eye and the other eye is good, the other eye that is injured will try to mimic the movements of the other eye. So in this case, I make sure that he's got his eyes closed to prevent further damage. So I monitor the IV, I monitor the vitals. And we flew the patient to Cordova, and we waited for a C-130, which he was gonna take the patient from Cordova straight to Anchorage, so he can get a better care for his eye.
All right?
Good, sir.
All right.
Other than my eyeball, of course.
Well, I mean, all things considered, right?
Everything else is good. I was working on getting an oil sample and I was popping a cap off, and the screwdriver came off and hit me in the eye.
Okay. All right, well, good luck to you.
Oh, thanks, sir.
I felt good. I was very happy that we could go out there and help this guy out. He was working when this happened. He's an MK. He was working on machinery when it happened. And I kind of thought on the way home, how many days am I a little bit careless in my job, not wearing safety goggles, not wearing gloves, not being cautious on the ramp, and do I want to risk getting myself hurt? So helping out a fellow Coast Guard member was a huge honor to be able to go out there and do that, but it also was an eye-opener, no pun intended, to be a little more careful in my job and not take the everyday things that we do for granted, be a little safer so I don't wind up in the same position.
It looks like the child is seizing and arching her back and clenching her teeth.
Doc's good to go.
We're rolling like gangsters then.
When the alarm goes off, it's an infant that is, struggling for their life. It brings everything into focus.
There was a report of a 15-month-old child with coma-like symptoms. We are launching our H-60 aircraft here from Kodiak. They'll be traveling from Kodiak to Shignik Lake, where they'll be picking up the patient and be bringing them back to Sandpoint, where the aircraft will meet the Guardian Medevac flight to take the patient on to Anchorage.
It's 2:20 to Shignik Bay. It's going to be tight, so just want to be upfront about that.
Now, we got the call about 2 in the morning, so we were waking out of a dead sleep for this one. It was a little girl, and once we got more information when we arrived down here at the hangar, we found out it was approximately 200 miles away, so we knew it would be about a 2-hour flight to transit to the village where the little girl was located, and then transfer the patient to the civilian LifeMed aircraft in Sandpoint. Based on the prognosis of the patient, it's pretty serious, so we want to get there as fast as we can.
All right, Doc Schick's on his way. He may be bringing a corpsman with him. Apparently, he thinks it's critical. They're still trying to hash that out. Any questions so far? Keep talking to each other and try to stay awake and stay alert. All right? All right, cool.
Lieutenant Tim Williams. I'm a H-60 helicopter pilot at Air Station Kodiak, Alaska. Typically for a medevac, we would just take a corpsman, trained medical person who's trained to go on flights with us from the clinic. However, on this case, we were informed that the flight surgeon, who's a doctor, was going to go along the case, and that does not happen very often. So we know as a flight crew, it's pretty serious.
My name is Randy Schick. I'm one of the Coast Guard flight surgeons here. I understood that the case was a very small child in distress, and the thought was to get the person with the highest level of expertise on the case to give the child the best chance.
And Kodiak here from Rescue 5 HED. Yeah, we're taxiing for takeoff after the runway now.
Roger, and I've got some amplifying information to pass that may be pertinent for the flight surgeon to know.
Okay, engine capacity amplifying inflow.
Just recently, they reported it looks like the child is seizing and arching her back and clenching her teeth. I'll copy.
And Kodiak here from 05, solid copy.
I think when you hear someone's having seizures, especially a child, you try to compartmentalize because it does enter your mind, and you want to get that person, to a higher level of care and get them taken care of as quickly as possible.
We're going right over the spine of the island, pretty much direct.
Initially, we'd hoped that the civilian LifeMed aircraft would be able to land at a nearby airport to transport the patient. But when we looked at our timeline, it looked like we would be actually waiting an hour for that aircraft to arrive. So we requested a C-130 to depart Air Station Kodiak to pick up the patient sooner than the civilian aircraft would come in and transport the little girl to Anchorage.
My name is Lieutenant Philip Whitmore. I'm the C-130 engineering officer. When the alarm goes off and they have a pretty concrete idea that, hey, this is an infant that is, struggling for their life, it kind of brings everything into a perspective and a focus.
Is Doc Nolan up right now?
Yeah, Nolan's up.
Did you hear the status of the patient?
No.
Seizure activity, but stable.
There was already one doctor on the H60, Captain Schick, who was dealing with the child on the spot, but he wanted some additional help. So Doc Nolan showed up, and we were able to throw him on the airplane and get going quick because everybody knew the essential nature of the mission at that point.
The helicopter portion was really pretty short. When we got there, it appeared as if she had recently had a seizure. She was moving, but not moving normally. Looked a little tired, confused.
Did you ever get hold of the 60 on HF? I was going to give Sector Anchorage a call, and they were the ones that were keeping their guard.
We got communications with the 60 probably halfway through the flight and figured out they had already picked up the infant and they were on their way to Sandpoint. The weather was good. The runway appeared in the sea of black out before us.
All right, everybody where they want to be for the landing.
Roger.
We are on deck, Sandpoint.
We landed, and the timing couldn't have been more perfect. We weren't on deck for more than 30 seconds when the H60 called and said they were landing.
I want everybody situated immediately following Doc Schick bringing the child on board.
Roger. Has the helo landed?
So they might be coming over the hill here in a bit.
As a pilot, you always want to be a couple steps ahead of not just the airplane, but the event that's unfolding in front of you. You know, I have a 9-month-old kid at my house, a little baby, so it's kind of like you want to do everything you possibly can to give this kiddo another chance.
Oh, there's the 60.
In the back of the H60, it was pretty cramped. We were concentrating on keeping it warm. She'd had some seizure activity and was between seizures, and so it was quite a relief to see the C-130 getting there essentially at the same time. We wanted to transfer her and then get the IV going, and the best place to do that was in the warm environment of the C-130.
That's your mom, I think.
Yeah.
Once the helo landed, the first thing we did was got as much equipment off the 60 that we could and brought that to the C-130 while maintaining the patient's stable condition inside the 60. And then the patient came to the C-130 last.
All right, here we go. Let's make sure they get on nice and safe.
It's dark, it's cold, it's windy. Captain Schick kept a hold of the patient. She was wrapped in a blanket until we actually got her on the C-130. That's when you finally see the patient. You see someone who's really in need and they need your help.
Hey, John, we got everybody on board?
I got both docs, the HS and the mom.
Just let Doc Nolan know we'll maintain our position until he's okay with us starting to roll. Okay.
They're hooking up the IV now. If we can just try and keep it still another minute or so, it looks like they're about done.
Absolutely.
Doc's good to go.
We're rolling like gangsters then.
At that point, we just asked the helicopter to stay put, and we made a takeoff VFR out of Sandpoint, picked up a clearance, and then max blast all the way to Elmendorf.
Climbing about 160 knots. Phil.
Roger.
Got 40 cc's of fuel left.
After we, secured her and made sure everything was safe for takeoff, that's when I really noticed she wasn't really responsive to anything we were doing. Her eyes were open, but to actually have her focus on something or, anything like that it wasn't there. And then that's when we were able to give anti-seizure medication.
I was concerned about, my anxiety level, but one of the things you like to do is kind of prepare your crew with what they're gonna see, sort of as like a stress inoculation, especially C-130 crews. We don't see a lot of the more traumatic events that the 60 crews do. At one point, I walked in the back of the aircraft and I turned around the corner behind the Casper pallet and the mother's sitting there staring at her baby, and this 15-month-old baby in a diaper is just having seizures, just racked by seizures. And that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever seen.
Hey, John, we got everybody on board?
I got both docs, the HS and the mom.
The call came in that a 15-month-old child needed to be medevaced from Sandpoint, and the decision was made that the helicopter would fly from Chignik Lake, land at Sandpoint, then we would do a passenger transfer, and then Mike and myself would go ahead and fly the child up to Anchorage. The child was just very sick and was having seizures, like nonstop seizures.
How's the mother hanging in there?
She hasn't taken her eyes off that baby yet. She looks pretty grave.
Okay, crew, we're lined up on final. We're about 7 miles out.
We made the call to have an ambulance meet us at the base when we landed in Anchorage so that as soon as the ambulance got there, we could do a quick transfer, get the patient onto the ambulance, and get moving towards the hospital as fast as possible.
How's the baby doing?
The baby is stabilized. Oxygen saturations are very encouraging, around 100%. Pulse is in the 170s to 180s. We've decreased seizure activity and established a good IV in her right leg.
All right, cool. Thank you, Doc.
Once we landed in Anchorage with the patient, she was still in an unconscious, unresponsive state. The seizing seemed to slow down a little bit. It wasn't as active. Every once in a while, the patient would open their eyes and look up, and you almost get that feeling like she knew she was being helped and we were doing everything we can.
What goes into an operation like this is a fairly big deal. You launch at 60, so you have Hangar 3 trying to make things happen as quickly as possible. District is trying to coordinate ambulances. They're trying to coordinate hospital space. There's a certain level of personal satisfaction knowing that you made a difference, but that's coupled with the fact that knowing that some mothers may be having the worst day of her life.
My very first case involved an 18-month-old little girl, and by the time we arrived, she'd already died. And I'll never forget something a good friend of mine, who happened to be the other pilot I flew with that night, said. Cases involving children in Alaska are especially difficult because a child, unlike an adult, isn't aware of a lot of the hazards associated with living in this state, especially in remote areas. So when we're not in a position to help, it's difficult, it's hard. But when we are in a position to help, it's very rewarding.
All right, guys, let's go. I'm Lieutenant Israel Young. I'm a C-130 pilot at Coast Guard Air Station Kodiak, and we're in front of my dear wife's store, Ton of Fun, where she sells all sorts of party supplies and celebration equipment. Sweetie, how are you? How was your day?
Good. It's been
Awesome.
busy so far.
I brought your workers in.
I know.
They're
I have
ready.
stuff for them to do.
They're ready to put in the work to make some money.
Good.
Every couple Saturdays, we bring the kids down to kind of help out, restock, clean up some messes, get some things put together for Mom to make her life a little easier while we're sitting around at home not doing much. Kind of gives them a way to be exposed to the family business and teach them that a little work might get you a little money in the end.
See all this? I need you to help Mommy put that away, okay?
What's next?
You know what I need you to do? Go upstairs and get the shopping cart because I sold the other one and put it together for me.
It's a small town, so it's been a really great opportunity for my wife. She's gotten to know, everybody, all the locals, all the moms and pops. Really done a fantastic job for us to, actually integrate into our community here in Kodiak. All right, that mission was accomplished.
You already put it together?
Oh, you want me to assemble it?
Yes.
I don't fix or build things. I'm a pilot. I break them.
My name's Erica Young, and I'm married to Israel Young. We've been in business 1 year. It's been good. My family's really great at coming in, and especially for the menial jobs. Like I don't want to bend over and put the utensils up on the hook, so it's great to have short people to do it for you.
Make sure everyone has
Oh yeah, that's the best. I think the community looks forward to, more participation from the Coast Guard. And there's always a couple families that, they want to have their own business. And so they take their shot, and they're usually the ones that get along best with the rest of the community. All right, bye, babe. I'll come pick you up at 5.
The initial information that, in this case, was a stroke victim, that tells us that we want to get that person to a higher level of care as quickly as we can.
Sector 6005, we're on normal, we're on scene.
Okay, engine instruments are within limits, flight idle.
2606, clear for takeoff.
N05 Kodiak Air. My name is Lieutenant Chad Morgan. I'm the current Operations Duty Officer here at Air Station Kodiak. Roger, understand you'll be on scene in 10 minutes, was that correct? Roger. I got a call from District 17 who got a request from the Port Lines Medical Clinic that they had a 46-year-old male complaining of stroke-like symptoms. We launched the H60 to go to Port Lines to pick up that patient and bring him back here to Kodiak.
My name is Lieutenant Commander Mark Tunstall, and I'm an H60 pilot stationed here at Air Station Kodiak.
The initial information that, in this case, was a stroke victim, that tells us that it's pretty serious, so we want to get there as fast as we can and get that person to a higher level of care as quickly as we can.
So I'll just tell them that the ambulance will be waiting for him in Kodiak. Roger that.
Port Lines is one of the small villages that is close to Kodiak. In most of the small villages here in Alaska, and especially on Kodiak Island, the medical facilities are very limited. Most clinics don't have doctors. They do have maybe a nurse or a physician's assistant, so the rescue swimmer will be responding to the patient while they're being transported for the short flight time.
We are ready to go here.
My name is Travis Nash. I'm a helicopter rescue swimmer here in Kodiak. When a patient is complaining about possible stroke, there's a huge variation of what could be wrong there or how bad the patient could be.
Ready for approach. Your best area for the letdown is southeast of the position. Okay, roger that, thanks. Sector 6005, we're on normal, we're on scene.
We got on scene, landed. There was a medical personnel there, asked the questions of what has been done so far, how long it's been going on for. I walked off to the plane, met him, asked him a few questions. He was thinking and talking clearly. He knew what was going on. But even if he is acting coherent and seems to know what's going on, we still treat him as a high priority. Figured out that he was ambulatory and he could walk to the plane, and we walked him over and we went ahead and loaded him up and got him back over to Kodiak.
Bring a survivor into the cabin door.
In this case, it was a stroke victim. Until we're told, otherwise, we need to get the patient to a higher level of care as soon as possible, especially with those conditions.
Yeah, I was watching the Magic and the Bulls. Good game. Ate some dinner. Then we decided to go to the store. So I got on my four-wheeler with my son. It was like I was driving like I was drunk. But I wasn't. I wasn't making any sense talking. You remember all that? Yeah. But it was so weird. I don't understand.
Door is closed and locked, and we are ready for flight. Roger.
He was obviously coherent, but at the same time, we want to take every precaution we can to deal with a possible stroke victim. Keep monitoring the vitals, keep him on oxygen, and that's it. Make sure he stays stable. The air station will pre-brief the ambulance to be on scene when we land. So we'll just come in, it's usually smooth. We'll land, then we'll just transport him over to the ambulance and hand him off to the paramedics.
No case too big or too small. We treat each and every case with the same level of professionalism each and every time, so we can make sure that the people that we go out to help are rendered the appropriate level of care.
Nice job, guys.
I'm Jody Tunstall, and my husband's Mark Tunstall. He's a 60 pilot. Today's his last day, and we definitely think after 20 years of service between the Marine Corps and the Coast Guard, he deserves to go out with a bang. Here he comes!
Yowzy!
You know when your 9-year-old picks up all the dog poop in the backyard, something must be up, right?
Seriously.
Thank you so much.
When a guy like Mark's leaving the service, 20 years of service between the Coast Guard and Marine Corps, a great guy at work as far as being a mentor and a leader, and then, away from work, he's one of the best friends a guy could have. You can really depend on him. He's always there for you. It's just great to have a function like this to send a guy like that off the right way.
This is your cake.
That cake's awesome. That is awesome. This was the perfect way for me to depart. I've truly been blessed with the people that I've met throughout my career, and when you do have to leave and move on, it's a little tough to say goodbye.
Up in Alaska, conditions are pretty tough, not just the flying, but also just the living conditions. We tend to rely on each other a lot. It brings us together pretty closely. Mark's done some great work for us, not only as an H-60 aircraft commander, but also as an acting operations officer. He was put in some pretty tough situations on nights when our aircraft were out there doing tough things in tough conditions, and made it through. I wish him well and hate to see him go.
Working here in Alaska, it's a true adventure, and I think the people up here make it special too, because I think everyone has that same sense of adventure in common. When you share a lot of experiences with people, especially experiences that are challenging, like the ones you face in Kodiak, you definitely form a bond with the people you work with. It's been a tremendous opportunity, and it's an experience that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world.